Hello everyone and welcome back to Cameraless TV. Fujifilm just announced the new X-S10. It is a small mirrorless APS-C camera with the tech from the X-T4. Well, how much tech? You're just gonna have to watch to find out. The new X-S family of cameras sits somewhere in between the X-H and X-T series of cameras. So I took this camera over to the Living Desert Zoo over in Palm Desert, which is about 10 minutes from here. And I really wanted to put the camera through its paces, so I took it out with the 100-400 from Fuji and the 18-55. I spent my majority of the time shooting with the 100-400 from Fujifilm. This is a really fun lens. I really like this. This is a great lens to take to a zoo. In full frame terms, it's 150-600 millimeters, and it is an f4, 0.5 to 5.6. Real quick, if you are local here, if you haven't been, or if you come here to visit, definitely go check out the Living Desert. It's a really cool zoo. It's not very busy, and they have a lot of really great exhibits. You know, when first looking at the camera, it almost looks like they took the grip from the X-H1 and attached it to the X-T30. And however, you will notice that the top of the camera is quite different than the X-T30. The ISO and the shutter speed dials are gone and instead replaced with a function dial and a mode dial. Along with the dials, you have the ISO button, a pop-up flash, a quick menu button, a video record button. The mode dial sports your standard modes, but also adds a full auto mode and an SP mode. The SP mode allows you to choose between different scene modes. This is a nice feature for someone who is just getting into photography. And the dial also sports 4 custom modes, filters, and a movie mode. The back of the camera, we have a drive mode that doubles as a trash button, playback, autofocus, and exposure lock buttons, a menu button, and a display button. And gone is the 4-way D-pad, and you now just have a joystick. The EVF is the same that you will find on the X-T30, and something that is missing is the EVF button. And so to change the settings for the EVF detection, you're gonna need to dive into the menu to make the changes. The back screen is a 3-inch touchscreen LCD that flips around just like the X-T4. Let's dive into the tech specs here real quick. The camera features a 26.1 megapixel backside illuminated X-Trans CMOS 4 sensor and the X Processor 4. But more importantly, this camera has IBIS, which is good for 5 stops of image stabilization. As you can see here, when the IBIS is working with the lens image stabilization, it works really well. You can see here I'm zoomed in all the way on the 100-400 and it looks great, and I'm just hand holding it. It's capable of 8 frames per second with mechanical shutter, 20 frames per second with electronic shutter, and 30 frames per second with a crop in the electronic shutter. It has 425 phase detect autofocus points, 18 total film simulations including the new Eterna bleach bypass. As far as video specs, you get 4K at 30, 420, 8-bit internal at 200 megabytes per second, and 4K 30, 422, 10-bit, 200 megabytes per second when recording via HDMI. This is where you'll notice a difference between the X-T4 and this camera. The X-T4 is capable of doing 10-bit internal, whereas you'll need an external recorder for the X-S10. You do get some super slow motion footage with 240 frames per second when recording in 1080p. However, there is a 1.29x crop when filming in this slow motion mode. The camera uses the same MPW126S battery as the X-T30, not the new one that comes with the X-T4. As far as the ports go on this camera, you have a microphone jack, USB-C port, and a micro HDMI. There is a single SD card slot right next to the battery. It is nice to see that there is a pop-up flash hidden on the top of the camera, and you can pop it up with this little lever. As you can see, the image quality from the camera is what you would expect. It's on par with an X-T4. It's great. You can see tons of detail. The colors are really beautiful. Because the RAW converter is not out yet, I was only able to do minor tweaks to the JPEGs. So one thing that Fujifilm is really excited about is how this camera actually feels in the hands. This comes to the grip. It allows you to hold the camera one-handed really easily. So I gotta say, this lens attached to this tiny little body felt really nice this entire day while I was shooting at the Living Desert. I was able to walk around all day just like this. Just holding it by the grip, and that's it. Like I say, Fujifilm really knocked it out of the park when it comes to this grip. It's kind of like a mini X-H1 in a sense. I really like this. I can see myself using this camera personally. Yeah, I'm blown away by how well the camera balanced with this lens, because this is a huge lens when you look at it. I mean, that's all the way extended, and I can hold this one-handed without much strain, and that's impressive. You know, that's something that not a lot of other cameras can do, so it's nice to see that. The camera did take a little bit to get used to for me with the different layout on top and on the back. I'm used to having the dedicated buttons on top for shutter speed and ISO and exposure comp, and not having those kind of threw me off at first, so it took me a little bit to get used to what was what. I typically shoot aperture priority and ISO auto. I like to keep it simple. I believe in getting the shot rather than messing around with the settings to get the perfect exposure, but that's just me. Autofocus on this camera was really fast, just as you would expect. So you do get the same autofocus it looks like that's in the X-T4. You can hop into the menu here and change your settings for the autofocus continuous mode, which is really nice to see. Yeah, I'm really excited about this camera. I think you guys would be too. This camera is going to be available as a body only or in a kit with either the 18-55 or the 16-80. So you have a lot of options as far as the kit goes. And so body only is going to be $9.99. The 18-55 kit is going to be $13.99, and the 16-80 kit is going to be $14.99. So yeah, if you guys are interested in picking up one of these cameras, make sure you hit that link down below. It'll take you over to camerawest.com where you can place an order. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and drop a comment down below if you have any questions. This is Adam, and I'll see you next time.